So first of all, I'd like to introduce myself to all of you that I may not know. My name is Lisa Torgerson, and I am the Director of Leisure Travel Services here at Travelex International. And I have invited Alex Roth to share Hawaii with us. I think it's definitely prevalent right now as people are thinking about warm places to go, and Hawaii seems to be on everybody's list, whether they haven't been there or they have been there. So I thought it would be nice for us to kind of learn a little bit about each of the islands and what they're known for. And Alex is this is her area of expertise. Alex comes to us from the Hawaii Convention and Visitors Bureau. So she's going to share the islands. And then I do want to encourage you that during the presentation, if you have questions, you can type them either in the Q&A box or in the chat box, and we'll answer them at the end of the presentation. So Alex, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Oh, great. Thank you, Lisa and Kim. Aloha, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Once again, my name is Alex Roth. I'm with the Hawaii Visitors and Convention Bureau. I'm Eastern Regional Director. So I'm actually based out of New York, but I am from Hawaii, born and raised. So like all of you, probably in Illinois or on the mainland, it is very chilly here in New York. So we're going to be talking about some much nicer weather areas tonight across the Hawaiian Islands. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my video so that you can pay attention to all the pretty pictures that I have throughout this presentation. And tonight, what I'm going to share with you all is a little bit of why Hawaii. We're going to talk about each of the islands and go through each island's unique personality types, some of the top attractions and more. We are going to cover a little bit of the protocols for traveling to Hawaii at this time. And then I want to share our MALAMA Hawaii campaign message with you to close out as well. So just to kind of take a quick step back and talk about why Hawaii in the first place, right? And I'm sure you got a lot of your own personal reasons as to why Hawaii. Some great ones include the fact that it has this gorgeous natural environment across the islands. And especially in this time of social distancing, Hawaii offers wide open spaces, great places to go hike, to spend time on the beach, to be out in nature. Of course, nearly perfect year-round weather, which is certainly something that we're all kind of thinking about and hoping for as the weather gets colder here on the mainland. And certainly that welcoming spirit of aloha. This is something that makes Hawaii so special, and our residents are, wanting to welcome you, our visitors, back to the islands after we've had quite a bit of a pause in 2020, and we've had some great months of tourism this past year. And one of the things that has made Hawaii a really great destination, especially during this time while we're still in the pandemic, is the fact that Hawaii is part of the US. And of course, that means there's no passport required, no currency exchange, no language barrier. But in addition, it also means that there's no testing required to return back to the mainland. So that's been a really great factor for us over the past year, pretty much since we have been reopened to visitors. Many of our visitors have been coming from the US mainland and finding that it's very easy and convenient to travel there. And of course, we do have a very rich Pacific Island culture. So even though we are a domestic state, it does almost feel like an international destination. Now, keep in mind, we are one state of the, the state of Hawaii, but we do have 6 unique islands that we offer, and they really kind of offer 6 distinct destinations. So I'm going to be talking about each of these islands, the unique personality types of each, and some of the top attractions of each as well. And when we're thinking about Hawaii and where to stay, this is definitely where you can talk to your travel advisors. Kim and Lisa, they'd be happy to help you and figure out the best type of accommodation for you. But across Hawaii, we do have a number of great types of accommodations, whether that is large or small, resorts, hotels, boutique hotels, etc., condominiums, vacation rentals, etc. So we've got really something for everybody here. One thing I do want to remind you all, however, is that Hawaii does not have any all-inclusive hotels or resorts. And, I just want to make sure that everyone has an understanding that we probably won't ever have any all-inclusives, but that's okay because it's Hawaii really is a destination that is to be explored. I think with the all-inclusive concept, a lot of times it really kind of helps to keep you on the resort property or the hotel property. But with Hawaii, we truly want you to get out and enjoy the destination. As fabulous as our hotels and resorts are, they will tell you the same thing. But of course, we understand why someone would want an all-inclusive, and especially to have some of those meals kind of packaged and offered as well. So many of our hotels and resorts are offering breakfast packages. They may also offer some kind of evening packages as well for like happy hour, some appetizers or pupus, etc. And then we also have some other great accommodations that may come with a kitchenette, like a condo, a villa, etc. And if you really are looking for the kind of all-inclusive feel, island cruising will probably be your best bet there. And one of our top cruise lines that go across the islands is the Norwegian Cruise Line, Pride of America, that starts and ends in Hawaii and is a 7-day cruise here. Now, in terms of getting to Hawaii, if you're not taking a cruise from the West Coast, for instance, we do have many flights from many US mainland cities, and that's probably your best bet for getting to Hawaii. We do have flights from all over the US, so I just wanted to highlight some of the new air service that we have into Hawaii as of this year. So despite everything that's been going on throughout this pandemic, we have some new lift coming into Hawaii, which is really good news. And for many of you in the Chicago area, I just want to point out that this year, United started offering a Chicago to Kona nonstop flight. They've already had the Chicago to Honolulu nonstop. So that just provides you an extra option to get to the island of Hawaii. Now with that, I want to take a virtual tour of all the islands and talk about those 6 islands that I mentioned to you. So I'm going to go in order of oldest to youngest of the islands. So if you're looking at this map here, I'm going to start from the northwest, starting in Kauai, and make our way all the way down to the southeast to the island of Hawaii. Now, of course, if you do have any questions along the way, feel free to type them in the chat. I'd be happy to answer them at the end of this presentation. So of course, starting out with the oldest and northernmost of the islands, the island of Kauai. And here's a beautiful shot of the Napali coastline. So this island's personality tends to be lush, idyllic, peaceful, serene, immersed in nature, endless shades of green. So if you are someone who loves nature and you're attracted to the island's peaceful, immersive environment, this could be a really great island for you, especially if you're trying to escape the busyness of life and relax and rejuvenate throughout your vacation experience. Now, we all know that relaxing and rejuvenation especially can mean different things to different people, whether that's really taking in the immersive natural beauty of the island itself, the raw energy of the Napali Coast, or the expansive vistas of the Waimea Canyon, for instance. Really great way to rejuvenate. But of course, it could also mean just relaxing on the beach, maybe having a nice spa treatment, or perhaps maybe doing something a little more thrilling, like an ATV ride, zipline experience, etc. These are all things that can be experienced on the island of Kauai. Now, some of our top attractions on this island, I've already mentioned briefly the Napali coastline. Now, this is 17 miles of mountainous shoreline along the northern coast of Kauai. It is truly an iconic site, and I'm sure you've seen it in pictures before. And the only way to really access this and take in all the sights of the Napali coastline is to do an air or a boat activity. So you can do a helicopter ride, maybe a catamaran sail, a snorkeling adventure, and if you're maybe a little more adventurous, perhaps a zodiac raft, which will take you into even those sea caves along the Napali coastline. So these are definitely some great ways to experience the Napali coast. There's also a hiking trail called the Kalalau Valley Hiking Trail that does traverse part of the Napali coastline. Now, in order to access that, I'll mention a little bit later, but you do need to make a reservation for Hana State Park in order to access the Kalalau Valley Trailhead, which again, I'll mention in a little bit. Another top attraction on Kauai would be Waimea Canyon. This has been nicknamed the Grand Canyon of the Pacific. And as you can already see, some really gorgeous vistas. It's almost like a tropical Grand Canyon, as I like to say. And there are a number of great lookout spots that you can just drive out to in a rental car. There are also some great tours that will take you around here. Or if you do a helicopter ride, for instance, you can really get up and close into those canyons. My favorite thing is when you can see a waterfall trickling down this beautiful red canyon landscape. Now, as you drive through Waimea Canyon and you reach the end of the road, you'll get to Kokee State Park, which has a gorgeous view of the Kalalau Valley. So kind of like that, the back end of the Napali Coast is what you can see from here. And you can also do some nice day hikes around this area in Kokee State Park as well. Now, over on the east side of Kauai, we have Wailua River, which is the only navigable river in the state of Hawaii. And you can do a Fern Grotto boat tour here. You can take a kayak and just kayak along the river. There are some really great ways to experience the Wailua River, or you can, drive around it as well, basically. And you can also participate in mountain tubing, which is a really popular and fun activity. This is great for the family. Children as young as 5 can do this. But really, it's when you get into an inner tube and you float through these irrigation channels that were created during the sugar plantation era. And as you can see, these guests have helmets on them. They also have a little flashlight on their helmet. So this is actually for when you go through these tunnels that were also created during that time period. So you're floating through 5 tunnels on this inner tube, and it's a really, really fun activity. It's kind of like the lazy river, but just a little bit more adventurous, but still very easy to do. All right, so some really quick updates for the island of Kauai. As I briefly mentioned, we do require advance reservations now for Hana State Park, which is the access point for the Kalalau Valley hiking trailhead, the Hanakapi'ai Falls Trail, and Ke'e Beach as well. Now, you will need to make a reservation no more than 1 month in advance to the day that you'd like to go out to Hana State Park. And there are very limited parking spots. So I highly recommend making the reservation as soon as you can at gohana.com. Now, if you don't have a car or you're not able to get one of those parking spots, there's also a North Shore shuttle that operates along the North Shore and ends in Hana State Park. Getting a ticket for the shuttle will include your park entry as well. So that's another option for you to reach Hana State Park, which is basically at the very end of the road on the North Shore of Kauai. Another update, parking pay stations have recently been installed at the lookout parking lots for Waimea Canyon and Kokee State Park. So, these are things that we're going to continue to see across, various destinations, especially in areas that are very popular. We are in Hawaii looking to manage our destination better and to have more of a regenerative tourism approach so that we can make sure that all of these sites remain wonderful places to visit for years to come, and to really balance the resident sentiment as well as balance what the visitors are looking for as well, and make it an overall better experience. Now let's move on to the island of Oahu. And here's a great shot of Waikiki Beach and Diamond Head in the background. Diamond Head, by the way, you can hike up to this top there. This is one of our very popular hikes, which does have an entrance fee. I believe it's $1 per person or $5 per vehicle, but it's a really fun hike to do. It's an easy to moderate trail, and you've got some great views of Waikiki and downtown Honolulu from the top as well. All right, so speaking of Oahu's brand personality, this island is energetic, it's vibrant, contemporary, iconic, and really great for the cosmopolitan town and country appeal. So of course, Oahu is home to our capital city of Honolulu and the resort area of Waikiki, which is within the city of Honolulu. But keep in mind, it is called the island of Oahu, right? Not the island of Honolulu or the island of Waikiki, which means that there's so much more island to explore outside of our metropolitan city areas. And in fact, once you get out to, say, the North Shore, the East Side, the West Side, you'll find that it's a much more laid back country ambiance. Now, if you tend to be more of an active traveler and you have a whole checklist of activities you want to accomplish during your Hawaii vacation, if you relax by having fun or prioritize experiences like shopping, dining, nightlife, nature, festivals, etc., then Oahu is going to be a great island for you. Really a lot of great different activities, things to do, and some wonderful cuisine across this island as well. All right, so some of the top attractions. Of course, I briefly mentioned Waikiki already. So Waikiki is our resort area that is home to over half of the state's accommodations. So you're definitely going to have a lot of options for hotels and resorts, condos here right in Waikiki. This is a great area for shopping, dining, nightlife, and of course, water activities as well. Waikiki Beach is really known for its healing waters. This used to be the playground for our ali'i or our royalty, and really where surfing was invented. And it's a wonderful place to learn how to surf as well. Throughout the year, we tend to get more calmer waves here on the South Shore. So we do have some surf instructors that are ready to teach you how to surf here. You can rent some surfboards, etc. Or just, relax and enjoy the beach, or maybe do, say, a catamaran sail, sunset dinner cruise, etc. And of course, today is December 7th, Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day, and it is in fact the 80th anniversary commemorating the attack on Pearl Harbor. So very fitting that we are talking about Hawaii and of course, Pearl Harbor Historic Parks tonight. So Pearl Harbor is certainly one of Oahu's top attractions, especially for our US travelers. And among Pearl Harbor Pacific Historic Parks, of course, the USS Arizona Memorial is the #1 attraction here. So I do want to share a quick update with you all that the USS Arizona Memorial, it does require a ticket to get on that ferry that'll take you over to the memorial itself. They used to offer same-day tickets. However, they are no longer offering that. So I highly recommend that you book those tickets online in advance. You can do so at recreation.gov up to 8 weeks prior to your trip. Or you can also book a package tour, which may include transportation to get you to Pearl Harbor. It has a guided tour of Pearl Harbor Pacific Historic Parks as well. May include a few other things too. So definitely talk with your travel advisor and see what option works best for you. But again, I highly recommend booking this early if this is an important part of your trip. And of course, outside of the USS Arizona Memorial, we do have many other things to see here at Pacific Historic Parks, including the Battleship Missouri Memorial, the USS Bowfin Museum, which really recently went through a huge renovation, the USS Oklahoma Memorial, Pacific Aviation Museum, and of course the Visitor Center as well. Now, for some Hawaiian history and culture, there are two must-see attractions that I will share. One is Iolani Palace. And Iolani Palace is located right in downtown Honolulu. And it is, of course, one of the only royal palaces in the entire United States and one of 3 royal palaces in the Hawaiian Islands. However, I do believe that this is the most regal of them all. And this was built by King David Kalakaua. And it's a really fantastic place to go for a docent-led tour or an audio guide tour. You'll learn some really neat things here at Iolani Palace. For instance, one fun fact is that Iolani Palace had electricity before the White House even did. So a lot more cool things to learn here at Iolani Palace. And you can definitely learn more about Hawaii's history with our monarchy and once again, our ali'i or our royalty, including the family of King David Kalakaua and his sister, Queen Liliuokalani, who was our last reigning queen and monarch. And then the second must-see attraction for Hawaiian culture, I would say, is the Bishop Museum. Now, the Bishop Museum is named after the last reigning member of the royal family of Kamehameha, Princess Bernice Pauahi Bishop. And this is known to be the Smithsonian of the Pacific. It is a really amazing museum to learn more about the Hawaiian culture and the Pacific as well. As you can see, we've got a really great collection of artifacts here at Bishop Museum, and you can do a guided tour here as well. Now, I also mentioned to you that Oahu does have a town and country appeal, right? So if you do have a chance to get outside of the downtown Honolulu or downtown Waikiki area, you should definitely try to make it out to the North Shore. And especially during the winter months, the North Shore is a renowned place for surfing, especially from those professionals. And as you can see in this picture in the top right here, the waves can get pretty high. So I definitely would recommend to leave the surfing up to the professionals during this time of year and to always check the conditions out in the water. But it is a really wonderful place to be a spectator and to watch the pro surfers. In fact, this is where they have those huge surfing competitions. And as I'm sure you all know, this year surfing was part of the Olympics, and we did have a gold medalist come from Hawaii who has probably surfed these waves before on the North Shore. We also have some great charming towns along the North Shore, including the charming surf town of Haleiwa. And there's some great cuisine up here, like the garlic shrimp trucks, Matsumoto shaved ice, and some other great mom and pop shops along the North Shore as well. And while you're out there on the North Shore, on the northeast side of the island in a town called Lahaina is the Polynesian Cultural Center. And this is one of the largest attractions in Hawaii. And it is a wonderful place to get an introduction, not only to Hawaiian culture, but to other Polynesian cultures as well in the Pacific. I believe they feature 7 Pacific Island villages. So you can learn the difference between the Hawaiian culture versus Tahitian culture versus Samoan, Aotearoan or New Zealand culture, Rapa Nui, etc. And by the way, this image pictured here is of the Samoan fire knife dancing, which is really popular and definitely part of many of our Polynesian luau experiences. And certainly the Polynesian Cultural Center does have a fantastic luau as well as other great entertainment in the evenings as well. So a brief update about the island of Oahu, and especially for those of you who may be traveling to Oahu soon, we do currently have a vaccine-proof requirement for indoor dining, restaurants, bars, other similar social establishments. This is called the Safe Access Oahu program. So you will have to show either proof of full vaccination, or you could take a negative COVID test within 48 hours of entry. However, just to let you know, with the COVID test, if you're staying, for a week on Oahu, you're going to have to keep testing basically every 48 hours to do indoor dining. Now, children under 12 years old are exempt from this program. And if you'd like more details, you can visit our oneoahu.org website. Now, of course, this is, has been put in place due to the current situation with the pandemic. And hopefully, if things progress, this program will be phased out. However, of course, we can't tell when that might happen. So if you are traveling to Hawaii later, maybe in 2022, definitely check back to see what the current policies are. Some good news, however, is that over the past several weeks to a month or so, Oahu's case numbers have really been going down. So Oahu has removed all limitations on social gathering restrictions that they previously had. And we're now able to have professional events again with no capacity limitations. However, these are still subject to the Safe Access Oahu program, meaning the vaccination proof or negative COVID test proof as well. Now moving on to the island of Maui. Now, when I talk about Maui, I'm also going to briefly mention or talk about Maui's 2 sister islands, Molokai and Lanai, as they are all part of the same Maui County or Maui Nui. So first off, the island of Maui itself. This island is very popular among our US travelers. This island's very laid back, leisurely, great for social interaction, friendly, not contrived, good for discovery in those charming small towns. So if you are a traveler that likes variety, choice, spontaneous adventures on your vacation, Maui could be great for you. Or if you enjoy nature, but maybe in a more passive way, like being on the beach, meeting local artisans, etc. And above all, if you feel that your vacation really should be one where you can just go with the flow, this is going to be a great island. I like to describe Maui as being sophisticated yet down to earth at the same time. It's not quite as energetic and vibrant or commercial as, say, Oahu might be, but it's also got a little bit more going on in terms of commercial activity than, say, Kauai or the island of Hawaii. Now, one of the top attractions on the island of Maui is Haleakala. And Haleakala is a dormant volcano that stands at over 10,000 feet in elevation. It is quite literally house of the sun is what Haleakala translates to. So it is a wonderful place to go to see the sunrise. And especially if Maui is one of the first places that you're going to in your Hawaii vacation with a time zone difference, you may be waking up pretty early anyway. So that could be something that you want to plan for the beginning of your trip, where you're probably going to wake up early, but you do have to wake up around 2 or 3 in the morning to get out here and to be able to see the sunrise. If you choose to go on your own, they do require parking reservations, which can be made at recreation.gov. However, we also have a number of great tour operators that provide a range of excursions for Haleakala, whether it is for sunrise or for a different time of day, even for sunset. You can also bike down the slopes of Haleakala, for instance. So there are some great ways to experience this amazing attraction. Another classic attraction on the island of Maui would be the Road to Hana, also known as the Hana Highway. Now, this is 54 miles on the east side of Maui. There are over 600 hairpin turns and 51 lane bridges. You've got waterfalls to see on one side, coastline to see on the other side, some places to stop along the way. And once you approach Hana, you'll find a small sleepy town with a black sand beach and a general store and one luxury hotel. But that's about it, right? So it really is more about the journey than the destination here for the Road to Hana. Now, you are welcome to do this in a rental car. However, we do have much stricter rules of the road now. Just ask that visitors keep in mind that this is also a residential community. So there are certain places that you are not allowed to stop along the way. And in fact, you will be fined, for pulling your car over in certain areas. And if you can maybe let the locals go by you, for instance, or the best option, and the option that we all recommend, would be to take a guided tour. And there are some really fantastic ways of experiencing the Road to Hana on a guided tour. Some are, a classic tour activity. They might include like a picnic lunch, etc. Some are a little bit more interesting. For instance, we have Rappel Maui, where you can actually stop at some of these waterfalls and rappel off of them before you return to Central Maui. Or one of my favorites is the Skytrek Hana activity with Temptation Tours. Now, this takes you in a 7-passenger motor vehicle. You do the whole road to Hana one way, and you get a nice picnic lunch when you arrive in Hana. And then you go to Hana Airport and take a helicopter on the way back and rim Haleakala before you return. Or if you're part of the other group that's doing it, you would do the helicopter activity first, and then you do the Road to Hana back to Central Maui. So these are 2 wonderful ways of experiencing one of the top attractions that has been a classic activity for decades now, that you can, brag to your friends and say, oh, not only did I do the Road to Hana, but I did it like this, etc. One other thing I will mention is that black sand beach at the end of the road, basically, Wainapa State Park is where it's located. We do now require advanced reservations for entry into Wainapa State Park. So you can make these reservations up to 2 weeks in advance. So again, especially if you are choosing to do the Road to Hana on your own, please make sure that you do make that reservation in advance for the day that you want to go, because it will be such a shame to do all of this to try to get to a black sand beach and to be turned away. And of course, as I mentioned, it is about the journey rather than destination. So if you can't make it to the black sand beach, that's fine too. But it is certainly an attraction that many people like to go and see. So be sure to have that reservation handy or to do a guided tour that may already include it. Now, for doing some just exploring around Maui, we have the historic Lahaina town, which is located in West Maui. This is a really great place to just walk along Front Street to experience, the shops, restaurants, the art galleries, things like that. Historic Lahaina town was known to be a whaling village at one point, and at one point was also the kingdom of Hawaii prior to, the capital of Hawaii prior to it being moved to Honolulu. In Lahaina, we also have a number of great boat excursions that leave from this area. And especially if you are there during whale watch season, which is December through April, this is going to be a great place to depart from. Now, another great boat excursion to do would be to go out to Molokini Crater. This is a little islet off the coast of Maui on the southwest side of the island. And it's a really great place for snorkeling. So it's definitely fun, especially for families to go out, go snorkeling for a bit. There are a whole number of different tour operators that offer these excursions. So depending on what your swimming level is, your snorkeling ability, you can choose the best one for you. And most of them depart early in the morning so that you can get out there when the waves are the calmest and experience the marine life, come back, and many of them will also serve you like a picnic lunch as well. And so I did also briefly mention whale watching. So once again, the whale watching season in Hawaii is typically December to April. And our humpback whales come to visit us across all of the islands, but they really like that calm, shallow channel between Maui and its sister islands. So especially if you're on Maui during this time, I would highly recommend taking a boat excursion out there to do a whale watching excursion. Or, maybe if you're staying on the west side of the island, for instance, you may even be able to catch a glimpse from your room or, from the beach area there too. Another great place to go exploring in Maui would be along the slopes of Haleakala in Upcountry Maui. And here we have a number of great, farm to table type activities, places to visit. We've got Kula Country Farms, Ali'i Kula Lavender Farm, Surfing Goat Dairy, where you can experience a nice fresh goat cheese, O'o Farms, which actually does a nice farm to table lunch activity. There's also Maui Winery out here where they make their own pineapple wine. So some really great places to just go and explore on your own time. So I've got some quick updates. Really just one main update. Maui is another island that also requires vaccination proof for indoor dining, bars, etc. Now for this island, outdoor dining and takeout is accepted without any proof of vaccination. And you can also test out of this as well every 48 hours if you choose to do so. And just like the Oahu program, children under 12 are exempt. So you can find out more details about Maui's program at mauicounty.gov/COVID-19. And once again, this is currently in place. However, things may be subject to change depending on the state of the pandemic, depending on when you are traveling to Hawaii. All right, so as I mentioned, Maui does have two sister islands, Molokai and Lanai. Now they're kind of more secondary islands, especially if you've never been to Hawaii. These could be for a return trip, and they're very different in nature. They're both, small, great places to unplug, but they take two completely different client types. Now Molokai tends to be very rustic, rugged, unspoiled, natural. It's really that old style of Hawaii. So it's great for community, the simpler life, to really see it in an authentic cultural experience of Hawaii's communities. So I would recommend this for respectful, responsible travelers who don't necessarily mind, where they rest their head at night or having a nice hotel or accommodations, but you're really there to experience Hawaii's culture, to experience Hawaii's communities, the local communities, and that simpler way of life. Now, we also have the island of Lanai. And this island is also very small, very rural, but this one is much more kind of a high-end feel. It's very serene, secluded, refined, luxurious, but also great for soft adventure. So if you're looking for like that serenity and luxury, almost like a private island feeling, this would be a great island for you. In fact, this island is the only one that is privately owned for the most part. It is 98% owned by Larry Ellison, the co-founder of Oracle. And his company also manages the 3 properties that we have on this island. And 2 of the 3 accommodations that we have here are Four Seasons brand properties. So we have the Four Seasons Beach Resort at Manele Bay. And then we also have the Four Seasons a Sensei retreat, which is much more of a wellness style retreat. So in terms of things to do here, there are some great ocean activities, snorkeling, horseback riding, clay pool shooting, archery, etc. And all of these things can be arranged through the resort. I also want to mention that Lanai also has a ferry between Maui and Lanai. It's about a 45-minute ferry ride. So this could be a good option, especially if you're staying on Maui, but you maybe want to do a day trip to Lanai or vice versa. It's a good way to get between the islands because as you all know, for all the other islands, we have to fly by air. So this is the only ferry that's offered between islands. Okay, and our final island of tonight is the island of Hawaii. This has also been nicknamed the Big Island because it is twice as large as all the other islands combined. And the Big Island is actually where I grew up and where my family still lives. So the island of Hawaii is known for living culture, for active exploration, for ecological diversity, those saturated blues, greens, blacks, etc. It's a really boundless place, and it is, of course, home to our active volcanoes. So if you are looking for that orange glow of the lava, you will not find it on any of the islands except here on the island of Hawaii. Now, if you tend to be more of an active traveler, an adventurous traveler, if you have an insatiable curiosity, this could be a great island for you. Additionally, for those who are looking for unique and unusual adventures that you can't get elsewhere, or you're interested in history, culture, and natural wonders, Island of Hawaii offers all of these. Now, one thing I will say is that this island does require a bit of trips within your vacation. So I would highly recommend renting a car for this island, especially, and also to be prepared to take a little drive and to drive out, and take a trip, whether it is a trip to Volcanoes National Park, a trip to Mauna Kea, which is known as the snow-capped mountain for stargazing, a trip over to the other side of the island, or even to do a Circle Island experience. And these are all things that you can experience on the island of Hawaii. One other thing I want to mention about the ecological diversity is that this island has 10 of the Earth's 14 climate zones. So you're really going to get a whole range of microclimates. And of course, with the different climates, you have different experiences, right? So whether you're staying on the west side of the island, which tends to be our drier, sunnier side of the island, is where most of our hotels and resorts are. You can have, white sand beaches here, really beautiful kind of sunny skies. Over on the east side of the island, for instance, it gets more rainfall throughout the year. So you may find much more of a tropical, lush landscape, waterfalls, etc. Or for instance, if you're in Volcanoes National Park, you're just going to be surrounded by black lava fields. Or you can go out to Waimea and it's just ranch lands. So a lot of different types of experiences depending on what part of the island you're on. All right, now speaking of Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, this is one of the top attractions on the island of Hawaii. You've got over 150 miles of hiking trails here. You've got steam vents, the Thurston lava tube, park rangers that can offer you all sorts of information about our volcano here. And of course, the orange glow of the lava. And I just want to mention that a new eruption commenced in late September of this year. So we've got some fresh lava to see at Haleakala Crater. So you can go out and experience this any time of day, really. Hawaii Volcanoes National Park is actually open 24 hours a day. So I would definitely recommend, maybe going out in the afternoon, doing some hiking throughout the day, and then staying until the sun sets and seeing that orange glow of the lava, as well as the stars at night as well. Or if you are more of an early morning person, you can kind of do the opposite and experience the sunrise and see the glow of the lava, and then stay out there for the rest of the day. A lot of cool things to do in Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. One thing I'll share though is that it is located on the southeast side of the island. So if you're staying on the west side of the island, many of the resorts, it does take about 3 hours to drive to Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. So just keep this in mind. Definitely talk with your travel advisor about how you might want to put your itinerary together. You may even want to consider doing a split stay on the island and maybe spending a night or two in Hilo on the east side, where we do have a couple of hotels. It is about a 40-minute drive from Hilo to Volcanoes National Park. Keep in mind, we also have an airport in Hilo as well. So you could even do a split stay. You can also, fly into one airport and then fly out the other airport as well. Now, in addition to Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, the island of Hawaii actually carries most of our national parks throughout the state. There are 8 national parks across the state of Hawaii, and the island of Hawaii has 5 of them. And outside of Volcanoes National Park, the other 4 are all exclusively tied to the native Hawaiian culture. So especially if you are a history and culture lover, I would highly recommend visiting these parks. You've got places like Pu'ukohola Heiau National Historic Site. Of course, try and say that 3 times fast, right? This is known as a place of refuge. Or maybe the Kalalau National Historic Park, which actually has some of the petroglyphs that you can find from our traditional days in Hawaii. So some really neat things to experience here as well. Pu'uhonua Ohonaunau National Historic Park is a temple. In fact, Heiau means temple, but it is kind of resembling the shape of a whale. And there's some really great history tied to it as well. So I'll leave that for all of you to experience when you are on the island of Hawaii. All right, another attraction here on the island is Kealakekua Bay. This is the bay where Captain Cook first made landfall in Hawaii. And it's also a marine conservation area where it's a wonderful place for snorkeling. So it's really difficult to drive down to Kealakekua Bay, but there are many snorkeling and catamaran sails that do depart out of Kailua Kona that come out here to Kealakekua Bay. So this will be a really fun kind of half-day excursion for you. And one thing that is incredibly unique and also very special on the island of Hawaii is swimming with manta rays. Now, this is the only place that you can swim with manta rays in its natural habitat. And just want to point out that manta rays are completely harmless. Stingrays are really the one that you have to worry about. But we've got a number of different excursions that go out at night when the manta rays are most active. And basically you just hop into the water, which I know sounds scary at night, but all you have to do is just hang on to a raft. And the raft has a light which attracts plankton, and the plankton attracts the manta rays. And all of a sudden you're just hanging out there and you see these manta rays just coming up and twirling in front of your eyes. And it is truly just a memorable, incredible experience that I'd highly recommend to everybody who comes to the island of Hawaii. And you can do this over in the Kona side and the west side of the island. Now, of course, I'm sure you are all familiar with Kona coffee. And we do, of course, grow Kona coffee here on the west side of the island. We also grow coffee in many other parts of the state too. And of course, because of Hawaii's great diversity in climate, we can really grow anything. So we've got some really great agricultural products on the island of Hawaii. So we've got some amazing farmers markets to experience as well. So I'd highly recommend checking out the farmers markets around the islands, but especially in the case of coffee farms, there are many that you can experience along our Kona coffee belt in Holualoa. And you can even do some coffee tasting experiences. You can even roast your own coffee. You can learn more about how coffee is produced here in Hawaii. So lots of really neat experiences around this. And then I'd highly recommend spending some time in Hawaii's lush east side as well. So I briefly mentioned the town of Hilo, which is my hometown, but it's a really great place, like I mentioned, for more of that tropical landscape. This side of the island does get more rainfall, as I mentioned. So you're going to see tons of greenery, as I'm sure you can already tell from these photos here. So for instance, you can go hiking at Akaka Falls State Park. And maybe I shouldn't say hiking, it's more of a 10-minute nature walk to go and see the tallest sheer drop waterfall in the United States. And of course, to see all of these great botanical things as well. We've got the Waipio Valley Overlook. Waipio Valley is also a very historic and important cultural site. The Hilo's Farmers Market is really excellent. And you can also do some great excursions along the Hamakua coast as well, including zip lining over some waterfalls, which is a really neat experience. We've got several tour operators that do these kinds of zip lining activities, including Umauma Falls experiences or Kapohokain adventures. All right. Well, I barely scratched the surface on all the things that you can do and see in the Hawaiian Islands, but I hope this has kind of whet your appetite and got you really excited to go and experience Hawaii. And of course, your travel advisors can help you even more to plan your Hawaii vacation. But hopefully now you've got an idea of which island or island combination might be best for you. And now I briefly want to talk about how you can get to Hawaii, because as you all know, we've got lots of different protocols for getting anywhere nowadays. And Hawaii certainly has their own protocols as well. This is of course subject to change and it's updated as of today, but you can visit that website, hawaiicovid19.com/travel for more updates. So right now for US travelers, it is actually the easiest it has ever been to travel to Hawaii since this pandemic started. If you are a fully vaccinated traveler who's been vaccinated in the US or US territory, you can come to Hawaii and not have to take a test, do not have to quarantine. All you have to do is just upload your proof of vaccination to our travel.hawaii.gov website. Now, if you are not fully vaccinated yet, you are required to take a pre-travel test no more than 72 hours prior to departure. Now, what's really important to keep in mind here is that your COVID test must be from a Hawaii state-approved trusted testing partner. We will not accept any other tests. And unfortunately, even if you go to the best hospital in the world or the US or your best doctor, if it is not on that list provided on hawaiicovid19.com/travel-partners, it will unfortunately not be accepted. And you'll either have to quarantine during your stay in Hawaii or maybe turn around and go back. And of course, we don't want that, right? So it's very, very important that you take the right test or be fully vaccinated. Now, for all of our travelers, whether you're coming in with a vaccination proof or with a negative COVID test, you'll have to create a Safe Travels account at travel.hawaii.gov. And here you will create your trip profile. You'll upload either that vaccination record or negative COVID test, answer a health questionnaire, and then you'll be on your way. And there is a 3-minute video on the travel.hawaii.gov website homepage, which explains the whole process. It's very straightforward and pretty simple. And if you are flying with a vaccination, we do highly recommend bringing that vaccination record, a physical copy of it, so you can present it upon arrival as well. Now, prior to June of this year, we did have some restrictions for inter-island travel, but fortunately, we no longer have those. So there's no testing or other further restrictions to fly between the islands. What this means for you is that, for instance, if you are fully vaccinated, there is no testing whatsoever required to travel to Hawaii, around Hawaii, or back home to the mainland. And then if you are not fully vaccinated, you just need to have a pre-travel test from one of our trusted testing partners prior to flying to Hawaii. And then from there, you're pretty much free to fly between islands or to get home without an extra test. Now, some important reminders for you all as we are still going through this pandemic. And of course, our residential community, as well as our visitors, we've all been through so much over the past 20 months or so. So when you are traveling to Hawaii, we do ask that you be respectful and mindful. And some of the ways you can do this is by abiding by our statewide mask mandate. We do require masks indoors, regardless of vaccination status at this time. Please adhere to social gathering sizes. Now, these are determined by each county. So, prior to traveling to Hawaii, I would recommend talking to your travel advisor or finding out what the county gathering sizes are. Fortunately, they've become a lot looser over the past several weeks. As I mentioned, right now, Oahu currently doesn't have any social gathering size restrictions, and each island has different numbers depending on, for indoor or outdoor gatherings. And then we also still recommend making reservations early, especially for ground transportation or rental cars, even for restaurants, activities, some of those those parks that I mentioned, or luau. Some of these activities do still have capacity limitations, especially in the case of rental cars. We do still have a limited supply. It's gotten better, but it is still not the same inventory as we had prior to the pandemic. So definitely talk with your travel advisor. And when they say book this early, they mean it because they know. All right. And I do want to share some information with you. According to a recent survey of travelers to Hawaii in October, 81% of our visitors rated their trip as excellent. 98% rated the friendliness of workers and residents as excellent or above average. And 81% stated that they did not have any issues with the Safe Travels website or process. So you can certainly have a great time in Hawaii, even during this pandemic, and especially with proper planning and advanced reservations, you're sure to have an even better time in Hawaii. Now, speaking of excellent experiences, I want to share with you a concept or a value in our Hawaiian culture. And it's a Hawaiian word called MALAMA. And MALAMA simply means to take care. And that extends to taking care of our earth, of each other, and of ourselves. So when we ask visitors to MALAMA Hawaii, it means to help take care of Hawaii with us. And I think this is a very important concept, and it has been for generations in Hawaii, but especially now more than ever. And especially since we've had a time to pause our tourism in Hawaii in the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of Hawaii officials are really thinking about how we can maintain Hawaii to be an amazing place, not only for visitors, but also for our resident community and also just for the environment for years to come. And this is why we are really moving more toward a regenerative tourism model, which means that we're leaving places better than we found it. And that goes for our residents as well as our visitors as well. And so I do believe that by taking time to MALAMA Hawaii, to take care of Hawaii, it makes for a much more important and special visitor experience as well. And you can have really immersive, enriching experiences by taking a trip that gives back. And this, of course, is something that goes beyond your vacation experience, right? We still want you to have a great time, relax, sip that Mai Tai at the pool, etc. But if you want to go even further, you can do things like participate in a volunteerism activity. And we've got some really amazing projects that we're inviting visitors to participate in, things like reforestation projects, tree planting, self-directed beach cleanups, even Hawaiian cultural quilting sessions. These are really great experiences for anyone. And it makes for a really great cultural and environmental, but also a great way to experience our history, our culture, our people. And to make this even more of a sweet incentive, we're actually offering MALAMA Hawaii packages, which involve select hotels and resorts partnering with different organizations and providing visitors a free night stay or even other discounts for the visitor participating in the organization's designated volunteer activity. So you can learn more about this program and the MALAMA Hawaii packages at gohawaii.com/malama. Or if you just simply want to participate in a volunteerism opportunity separate from the package, you can go to gohawaii.com/volunteerism. And you can also view a range of videos from our local MALAMA ambassadors talking about what MALAMA means to them and how visitors can MALAMA Hawaii while they're staying with us. You can find all these videos at youtube.com/gohawaii. And I wish I could share one of these videos with you today, but after much experience with Zoom, it's much better to not do videos. So you can go ahead and check those out for yourself on YouTube. But I really appreciate your time tonight. And I want to say mahalo or thank you to all of you. And I will take the time now to open it up to Q&A if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, I don't see any, but we'll give them here a minute or two to maybe type their questions. So one question I have, Alex, because I'm working with a client right now that's looking at going to Hawaii and they are not vaccinated. How easy is it for them to get the testing required to go into the restaurants? Is there plenty of places that they can do that when they're in the islands?
Yes, there are certainly many sites for testing, but I just want to reiterate that it does have to be done within 48 hours of the indoor dining experience, for instance, or for other establishments. In addition to the indoor dining, for instance, Pearl Harbor does require vaccination proof, and there may also be other institutions, organizations, businesses that require vaccination proof as well, and that may or may not be subject to the testing out. So just something that I want to reiterate and keep in mind for visitors that for at least for the indoor dining and whatnot, there are plenty of places to get tested, but it will mean that you have to test very frequently. And then there are also other businesses and establishments that may still require the proof of vaccination.
Perfect. Well, I don't see any questions. So, I mean, maybe they will think of them after the presentation is over. So I want to encourage everyone that's attending that if you do have questions, you can contact your travel advisor here at the office. Or if you don't have a travel advisor, you can call our office and we'll be happy to answer the questions. And if we don't know the answer, we can certainly get the answers for you. So I want to thank Alex for her time tonight. And Alex, it was fantastic. I learned a lot. It makes me want to go back to Hawaii, which I think everybody kind of feels that way. But it was fabulous and we appreciate your time and I appreciate everybody who attended tonight. And if you have any questions, by all means, please just reach out to us.
Fantastic. Mahalo, everyone.
Mahalo. Thanks. Bye-bye.